There's only one match left. They're on a 16 match win streak. I don't even know if that's possible. I have to look through the record books. And a team like Richmond to do this, they were just in the second tier, the championship division.
Oh my
Last year,
goodness.
they go from last to first. They're beating Man City.
Hey sports nerds, welcome to Nerdy Bunch review of Ted Lasso Season 3 Episode 11. My name's English Dave, and helping me decide if I'm ready to forgive is my co-host, Tim Sportsman. What's up, Tim?
What's up, Dave? This was, not only was it 69 minutes, but we had so much missing once again.
I mean,
From
we're at the end of the
Nate's
season.
storyline or Jamie's goal, or obviously they're leaving us on a cliffhanger and what's going to happen. What is Ted going to reveal to Rebecca? But once again, yes, we're only one episode left, and yet there's so much missing. I want this to be the greatest sports show of all time, and I'm debating it, but they're dropping the ball at the end, man.
I mean, again, we've been complaining a lot this season. And again, just for context for those listening, we judge this show based on what it's given us in the past, right? Not from what we want. Because, sometimes we understand that what you want and what the show gives you aren't the same thing. But we judge it on what it's delivered in the past. Like you've used analogy of sports. There's certain players, they're scoring a certain amount of goals or dropping some amount of points. And then next season, they're doing underwhelming compared to what they've done before. That's the lens in which we're criticizing this, and we've spoken about a lot that we've rushed through a lot of things. We don't mind where the story ends up. We don't mind the result, but we'd like to see how we got the result. I don't mind them winning, but I want to see how they win. I don't mind someone scoring, but I want to see how they score, And that's the
Dave,
constant.
there's only one match left. They're on a 16 match win streak. I don't even know if that's possible. I have to look through the record books. And a team like Richmond to do this, they were just in the second tier, the championship division.
Oh my
Last year,
goodness.
they go from last to first. They're beating Man City. And oh my God, I know Van Dam was incredible. And you have a hot goalie, you could beat any team. And damn, did that boy ball out. But I don't believe it. I don't believe this.
You,
This
you
isn't
know,
happening.
when I watch certain TV shows and movies, there's always a level of suspension of belief. We go into these, especially comedies, we kind of suspend reality a little bit. We're okay with that. This episode was the very first time I think I found my limit, and it was against Man City because I'm like, okay, I know it's not the Man City players, but you brought
Yeah,
in Pep. You brought in Pep.
they did.
So you brought in Pep, and then the status of Man City is still the same. In this reality, it's still this great team. There is no
Hmm.
way. Like, I don't mind them beating Man City. I don't even mind that, whatever, even though that's ridiculous. But to beat Man City 2-0, come on. It it would be it'd be a fight for your life to beat Man City. Like, it
Yeah.
wouldn't be that easy. So as
No.
coach, what do you think about this Man City game?
I mean, Jamie got his pep talk on the sideline after having one of the nastiest saves I've ever seen. Good for him. The
Right.
one moment Van Dam wasn't there to save it. Jamie comes in, boom, gets the save. Then he gets injured. He's on the sideline. Ted gives him the pep talk about, forgiveness. Forgiveness. We're trying to
Mind
figure
you,
out.
sorry, mind you,
Okay.
hold that thought, because mind you, while this is happening, they're playing with 10 men against Man City.
Yeah. Beer's
So,
like, we're not okay with this. 5 minutes go by. They have 10 men on the pitch. And it wasn't because there was a red card. No, he just wanted Jamie to get back out there because we want this heartfelt love story. So Jamie gets back out there. He feels good. He's fine. He's got the adrenaline and the painkillers in him and a nice pep talk from Ted. And he goes there and he jukes out everybody. And then he scores this, clinching goal. But he doesn't even swing his foot. From a sports perspective, I'm like, there's no way yeah, we didn't see the goal, but there's no way he even shot. Maybe a tiny little touch pass, but
yeah,
there's
yeah.
no way that's gonna beat Man City. I don't know, man. Good for them though. 16
Yeah,
match
that.
win streak. They're still 1 point behind Man City.
Yeah,
So if Man City wins in the last match of the season, they're done. They got no
yeah. So
shot.
it comes down to, again, that's another thing, my nitpick. I get it, it's for the dramatic stakes, but
Hmm.
the nature of the Premier League doesn't necessarily always come down to the last game. I mean, look at real life this season. Man City already won it. Games are still being played. It
Hmm.
doesn't that it's point based. It's not round based, so it doesn't necessarily come down to the last game. And we've mentioned off podcasts in our text groups how maybe they could have had a situation where it's more realistic for Richmond to have won like the FA Cup, which is round based. Maybe they don't win the league, but they beat their rivals West Ham and they win the FA Cup. That, I think that would have been more of a realistic approach to have a dramatic ending, or at least with this game, this idea of Jamie being injured. I think it should have been a closer match. Again, like I said earlier, I don't need them to lose against Man City, but show how tough. It didn't feel like that was the toughest game of the season for them. Like they feel like they had tougher games before.
Absolutely. But that's the same with everything we're struggling with. They aren't showing the struggle.
Yes.
They're just showing the result. That's it. And it's apropos throughout Nate's storyline, Ted's storyline. We're at least seeing the struggle. We see the clippings. We see why he's so much like his mom and where he comes from. I like that, but like we're missing the struggle in a lot of points, and all of a sudden Jamie just like breaks down in Roy's arms and like this like awkward cry too. I understand a man that's going back home, worried about facing Man City, a team that he left to go be a reality TV star, but then he scores the goal and they give him this like standing ovation. That's not realistic. But like the breakdown, especially Manchester. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know England like you do, but I can't imagine a city like Manchester being like, "Oh, you're the worst," and then like round of applause for beating us.
Yeah.
Like,
Nah.
nah,
Nah.
nah,
No. You see how those kids were in the alleyway when they were making fun of him? That
yeah,
that was real. That
yeah.
felt real. That was like, yeah, that's realistic. Yeah, and I
And
understand
Roy's
what they
like,
were trying to do
"Good lads."
I understand what they're trying to do with Jamie, and I think in this episode overall, Jamie's story is what was added to kind of give more context. But I think the focus was almost on the wrong thing, because I think what it was trying to tell us was that, okay, yes, he's anxious about going back, not just because of home, but because he's looking for his dad. Because every time he'd have matches there, his dad would always be criticizing, and he's got that PTSD of it all. But I feel like we only get one quick blink and you miss a shot of his dad. If you were on your phone, you might have missed it. You get a quick
Hmm.
shot of his dad kind of looking at him proudly. And I wish his dad was there. And I wish he did have FaceTime with his dad, because then it would have shown us why he's so upset, and really get that catharsis of having that closure with his dad. It was weird seeing him with his mum. It's interesting seeing his mum. I don't know what they were trying to play with there, but that relationship was weird. And I know that Roy and Keely were looking at it weird as well. So I know where they're going there. I don't know much about Manchester. I don't know what it's trying to say there, but I didn't look into it more. But his relationship with his mum was weird. Though I did like her new, I don't know if it was boyfriend or husband. I thought
Hmm.
he was hilarious. I could imagine him help raising Jamie. Um,
I think it was more to show the opposite of his father.
mhm, mhm,
Here's a woman who's clearly good looking, can kind of get whoever she wants, and she decides to go with a really nice, like warm, like friendly guy
mhm.
because
Opposite to her ex.
the ex exactly was this crazy man who created this monster in Jamie, but Jamie's trying to search for his soul, as he mentions. Like he's like, it's like when you're with a girl and you can't get hard, but it's like in my soul. I'm like, oh, you want a raging boner in your soul? I'm like, good for you, man. Let's try to find that, honey. I got you. I got. It was a really awkward relationship, but at least we got Roy's perspective. Roy just looking at him, like, what is going on right now? And then
Even
they
seeing
go
the
to his
posters in his
bedroom.
wall.
Yes, they go to his bedroom, and it's Roy Kent. It's like nobody. It's like Ronaldo comes in, but Roy Kent never leaves. Roy Kent never
Yeah.
leaves. Then they close the door, and it's Keeley just holding up some soccer balls.
Which I thought was hilarious. Speaking of Roy and Keeley,
Hmm.
we get a little bit of a little bit more further into the storyline, and it can go either way. We're left on a bit of a cliffhanger when he kind of lets her know that he doesn't want just to be a thing. He wants, he wants her back. Essentially, he's still in love with her. And before she can respond, Jamie does kind of interrupt them, so we never get to see her response. I've been saying a theory all season that I think Keely's going to end up at the end of the season, at least, be by herself to take time for herself. And at first, I thought she was going to respond to Roy and say, "Yes, I love you too." But now, the more I think about it, I think she's going to say, "Yes, I love you too." But that's where I think it's going to go. What do you think?
I want them to be together. It's so tough, you know? We don't
I know.
need all these relationships, but I want Roy and Keeley. Like,
Yes.
I just they're like two of my favorite characters, and they match
I
each
hear
other
you.
so well. I want them to be together, and I feel like the whole them chasing down Jamie through the dark alleyways and the subways, eventually going to his mom's house, was more about getting Roy and Keeley together in an awkward situation because they are on Jamie's childhood bed, staring at posters on his wall of themselves, just to give us that awkward moment. Similar to last episode, the whole Akufu scene with the food throwing was about
Hmm.
let's get Rebecca and Rupert together and let's get Rebecca
Hmm.
denying Rupert. This whole Jamie episode, Jamie breaking down, was all about Roy and Keeley. It was them coming together, them understanding each other. Roy knows Keeley's more the emotional person, so let me go to Keeley because I need this. I'm not this. I need that. And that's why they belong together. Like, whether they're not going to be together or not, I want it to happen.
Yeah. Again, I can see them eventually, ending up together. But I could also see Keely, like, again, the end of the season or the series doesn't necessarily mean the end of their lives, right? It could be a hint that, okay, we can't be together now, but one day, maybe.
But the,
I don't,
But they
I don't
both
know.
have
I mean,
grown
I
so
don't think we're gonna.
much. They both have grown
Huh?
so much.
I agree. I
Keely's
agree.
gone through Jack, and that's why I know Jack was a wasted storyline in your eyes, but like she at least tried something, went through that, got her company destroyed and taken away from her, but she still has, her assistant, eating the apple, waiting for, a little comment, or CFO, not assistant. Sorry, she's a lot more than that. But Keely's gone through that, and Roy's found his inner soul through helping Jamie. All of a sudden, he made Jamie the best player in the league.
Mhm.
Richmond is a great team because of that.
which which I thought was interesting. So like Richmond, a team that no one cared about before, they get an American coach who still barely knows the rules, and one of the ex players to train him, and they make one of the greatest teams, one of the greatest players. Wow,
Yeah,
that's
and
quite the journey.
leads the league in assists. Got one goal, but he wants that goal taken away because he meant to pass it. He's like, no, 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 take it off the scoreboard. I'm like, this is too much. The whole Jamie storyline, I was just yelling at my screen. I'm like, this is too
Oh,
much.
when
This
when
has gone too
when
far.
when when the fans ask to take a picture and he takes a photo and he takes a picture of them instead. I was dying
That's a Ted
laughing.
Lasso comedy. Like, that's on brand. That makes sense.
Yeah, yeah,
I was just
but yeah,
bothered
I
by
think.
how much he was crying. It was just
Mhm,
too much. I get it. You're a
yeah.
star. You're going back to Manchester. I get it. You're going to be emotional and you need that to happen, but it was just overwhelming.
Let's talk about Ted
Yeah.
and his mum. Talk about mums.
Hmm.
That's one of the pivotal storyline. The first time we see his mum, and we get to see uh, a person who made Ted the way he is. Even though he doesn't see it, his mum exactly like him, or he's exactly like his mum. And she'd been there for a while, listening to a lot of noisy Australian sex.
She was there for a week. I understand she doesn't want to see her kid right away. Come on. You're from America. You're from Kansas City and you're in England for a week and you're going to stay at a hostel with a bunch of Aussies? Get out of town, man.
But yeah, being the mom, she's telling all these stories to everyone about Ted, even though they're all wrong or misconstrued. She completely got the stories all wrong. But one of the reasons she's there is to let him know about his son, and also, Ted and her have a moment. What I think is interesting here is that if we go back to previous seasons when Ted was going through therapy. By the way, I miss her. I miss Susan. Oh, is it Sharon? Is it
Sharon.
Sharon? Yeah, I miss Sharon. I feel like she's missing in this show.
Agreed.
And we only got like a snippet of her in the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
Um, Ted was very much against therapy. He thought that was a weird thing. Keep it in. And so, like seeing this episode, him calling out to his mom and thinking like, we never dealt with dad's death, dad's suicide. You bottled everything in, which forced me to bottle everything. We never dealt with it. Fuck you. Like, what did you think of that whole opening to his mom and having that connection together?
Yeah, I mean, going back to Jamie for a quick second, him struggling with his dad, it's the like, what would you want to say to your dad? It's like, fuck you, but thank you. And it's similar with
Mm,
Ted. He's like, look, I'm hurt. And I know you don't want to talk about this stuff because you never want to talk about yourself. And he understands, or maybe he doesn't, but through therapy, he's starting to understand that he's the same way. He's always looking to solve everybody else's problems. Even when Coach Beard is sitting at the pub and May is talking to Ted at the pinball machine, Coach Beard's like, "Well, what's going on with you? How are you?" "Oh, don't worry about me, honey. I'm totally fine." It's like, "But how's Ted?" "Well, Ted's the same, always worrying about everybody else's problems, not his own." It's like, "Aren't you guys the same?" "I guess you are.
mhm.
So let me understand myself to be able to help you better." And that's what at least I try to do with my own mother. Like, instead of judgment, just understand, like, okay, I see where you're coming from. And May says it herself. Her life lesson was parents fill you with their faults and then add some extra. But like, basically her the moral of her story though was don't have kids. That she went on this whole soliloquy and was like, hey, by the way, just like don't have kids. Don't have any kids of your own. But look, I'm happy to have that scene with Ted and his mom. I think it's groundbreaking. I think hopefully Ted's going to be able to help his mom out and be able to help her grow and deal with these problems because those uncomfortable conversations lead to growth. And that's what it's about. Like this show has so many life lessons. You go through all three seasons, and hopefully there's actually I don't know. We'll save this for next. But like, do you want another season, or do you want just
I
one
I
more
do.
episode?
I think I don't think they can satisfy me with one more episode with a lot of with what they've done this season. I think if it's just one more episode, they might satisfy a few things, but I don't think they can satisfy everything naturally.
Yeah,
I think we do. I think I would like another season, but the way this is going, I don't know if it makes sense.
yeah,
There's what I like and what makes sense,
sure.
right? And even with the end of Ted's narrative in this episode, I think this is one of the few episodes, like you said, where we get the messy moments, right? The messy moment between Ted and his mom, and part of that narrative with, like you said, with May telling him about this is just the cycle of parents and kids. It's almost a flashbulb in Ted that, and the mom literally tells him, "Your son misses you." That's you are as much as I'm your parent, you're a parent to him. It's that cycle.
Hmm.
And you can create these similar things in your son because you're not around him. He's a great kid. He won't tell you this himself. He won't pressure you, but he does miss you. And that's something that's been, and again, I think that storyline's been best done this season because we've been seeing it from the very get-go, right? Very first episode, he was worried about his son, and his son was the one that was like, no, don't worry. And then every time his son's around, it was a bit messed up, with not messed up, but like uh 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 what should I say, overstuffed, adding the whole therapist storyline. I think it works the same. I get what they're trying to do, the drama. Oh my god, how crazy it is that your marriage therapist, is the one that's dating your ex-wife right now.
Yeah.
But it didn't go anywhere with that. Where as is, it would have been the same thing if it was just, oh, she's dating someone else and there's another father figure in your son's life and you're not there. Unless you get another season that delves into the whole therapist thing, it was unnecessary to make it a therapist. I think that storyline was just more about Ted, someone who has issues with his own father, right?
Hmm.
And then he has now how issues being a father to his son because of distance, and now someone else can take that place. I think that's been one of the better storylines. Stumbled a bit with the therapist aspect, but I did like how that is because, like we've been saying all season, I think Ted's gonna go back
Yeah.
to America, and so
Yeah.
it makes sense. It doesn't feel like it came out of nowhere.
Yeah, they didn't kind of leave us hanging or accelerate it too quickly, like a 16 match win streak,
Mhm,
you know. Um,
mhm.
but similar to what you're saying, like Jamie talks about the suitcase, you know, a drawer
Mhm.
without a home. And even though Ted, when he was a child, drove on the wrong side of the road in America, and that was appropriate of him being in England, he's never felt at home. And this episode showed us the community. It started off with the community and even the
Mhm,
haters saying
mhm.
"I love you." Basically, all these people, even the crazy lady. It's like, oh, you must have had a wild night. It's like, ain't wild unless you're having fun. I'm like, all right, cool, cool. But everybody loves him. Everybody loves Ted. We're happy. Of course, they're winning. Richmond's one of the best teams in the Premier League. They love Ted,
Right.
but does he need it? I don't think they need him. He's not that tactical, coach. He's not Nate. I think they'll be fine with Nate and Beard, and maybe Beard's better off with him. Beard's obviously
Mhm,
gone through a lot, and I really love how Beard explains how much struggle he's gone through and how Ted's been there for him, and that's why Ted's always left the door open for Nate. And he sits down with Beard and it's like, hey, let's watch the video and look at what Nate went through. Look at how embarrassing this must have been. He spent hours underneath our desk and then he finally got to leave and he had to leave out the window. Like, look at this man struggling. Doesn't everybody deserve a second chance? I gave you a second chance. Let's forgive him. And the moral of this episode was about forgiveness, about Jamie forgiving his father, Ted forgiving his mother, Nate forgiving Richmond.
No, no, and this is, I think, let's go to Nate's storyline. I think Nate's storyline is a perfect example of what we've been talking about all season, because we knew, beginning of the season, we knew that there was going to be a Nate redemption story, right? We saw this coming, and it's not something that we think that is is out of nowhere. But I think like this season, it didn't take the chance to really have us outside of, it took shortcuts like that, right, to have us believe that, oh, fine, let's forgive him, by giving us a really good emotional story about Beard
Yeah.
to make us feel sorry for Nate. I think it took a lot of short, like the end result. I like the end result. I like that conversation with Beard. I love the moment with Beard and Nate when Beard goes up to him and he's like, "You could headbutt me," and Beard touches his head instead. I love those moments. I just wish the season, like this episode, I hated the fact that it starts off with the team players coming, almost like asking Nate to come back.
Yeah.
I wanted to see more of Nate wanting to go back, as opposed to them like, I almost get the feeling that you can almost argue that if Nate's love hounds were really cool to him, he wouldn't want to come back.
Hmm.
He's almost wants to come back because the team he went to that he thought the grass was greener wasn't as green as he thought. He's not coming back. It doesn't seem like he's coming back because he felt bad for what he did.
Yeah.
It's like he only coming back because you thought better wasn't better. And I get that. And I get the story of forgiveness. That's a very Ted Lasso thing. But I just wish we spent more time, and these are past episodes I'm talking about. He spent more time with Nate on the other side, with Nate actively trying, and then realizing like, fuck, like these guys aren't. Everything was rushed really quickly. I was even saying to a friend of mine, actually no, it was in the chat group that we're in.
Yeah.
I was saying how I wish Zava had gone to West Ham so that we could have spent more time seeing Nate with that team and how that whole thing, and then we would have seen that struggle between Nate and Rupert, and Nate's, Rupert talking shit about like Nate's never spoken up for his team. If I wanted to see a moment where Rupert's like, fuck this team, your team's trash, their coach is trash, and Nate's like, no, stands up for them. It's like, no, they're the best thing that ever happened to me. I should have gone back to them, blah blah. It seems like when shit hits the fan, Nate's gonna like cower away and not speak up for the team. But every time the team will be there for you and forgive you. And I'm like, I get the forgiveness thing, but I still don't believe Nate deserves it.
Yeah. I mean, last episode, I was begging for a conversation between Jade and Nate, and we finally got it, but it was still even really awkward. Like, every time Nate was saying, "Oh, and this is my girlfriend Jade," she just like disappears. She's not there. She doesn't want to be a part of that conversation. And she's a woman who's just a hostess. And she's like, once I leave work, I don't think about work. And sometimes when I'm at work, I'm not thinking about work. I'm out. But you want to like plan, like, and make this the greatest restaurant of all time. Like, good for you. You're really good at your job. You'll be the best waiter of all time, but you're more than that. You don't need to be the greatest waiter of all time. There's a reason why everybody's coming to you. And when they hear about your story, they're like, oh my God, were you on drugs? It's okay. I've done drugs. It's I
No, it's
understand.
definitely
It's
drugs.
definitely drugs. I don't believe him. It was definitely drugs. But like they're having that conversation. She's like, go to Richmond. And he's like, anybody but Richmond. I can't handle it. But he was happy to go back when he was talking to Colin and Isaac and Will. But all of a sudden they said, oh, by the way, we haven't told Ted yet. And he's like, no, 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 no. I can't deal with this. I
Mm,
thought that was kind of strange. I'm not sure where they're going. There's a lot of unanswered questions. It leaves me
yeah.
uneasy, and there's a lot of missing conversations. And yes, I 100% agree. I would love for him to talk to Rupert and be like, "Look, man, like you're a real piece of shit, and this is why." And Ted has taught
Hmm.
me all these great life lessons, and I would be like, that would
Hmm.
be the perfect scene. It's not too much. Like they
Hmm.
could have easily given us that.
Yeah, again, I have no issue with the forgiveness of like I like the Beard forgiving him, right? And because Beard showed this anger towards him, it's almost like Beard is supposed to be us,
Hmm.
right? And be like, okay, well, and but it's like that pass it on. This person forgive me, so let me forgive someone else. But then again, it's like again, Beard is doing it because Ted forgave him. Beard's not doing it because you know what, you deserve forgiveness. You do want, like, and that's my thing. It's just again, I'm not trying to be that person that says no one, there's no second chances. I completely believe everyone deserves a second chance, but they've also got to show that they want that second chance and that they're remorseful, especially because realizing that you fucked up. Because I think in realizing and addressing that you fucked up is the first step to making sure you don't do it again. And you won't do it again because you have to acknowledge. Because it's like, it, again, from what we've seen, this you could probably argue that there's things that happened off screen. I'm only arguing what we've seen. And what we've seen is Nate wanted to leave West Ham because it wasn't as fun, as cool as he thought it would be from how it wasn't the same as it was at
Yeah, but
Richmond. Not because he did anything wrong, you
if
know?
you're giving us hour-long episodes, we shouldn't be like, oh, well, yeah, off screen, that probably happened. Like,
Yeah.
what I understand there's certain reasons why you would not want to show something specific to leave us guessing and thinking, but like, there's so many moments of that. Like, simple as showing us Jamie's goal, it really is annoying. Like, I'm like, come on, they're doing it again. I'm like, this is like the whole point
Mm,
of the episode. Like, they show us a quality match. They actually showed us like on pitch action, and they can't show us like the actual performance. Like, but they want to show us like Jamie's perspective. I feel it's too much intentional about like, here's my vision, here's how I'm feeling,
mhm.
and let's like leave vagueness and mystery to what? Like, what's the purpose? I'm lost.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, let's talk about just fun moments that this episode had. The ending, obviously, with Rebecca telling Ted that she doesn't have any major news, but he's like, "I've got major news," which again hints it could still be kind of throwing us off for a loop, but it hints at what we've been saying all season, and many people have been saying all season that Ted is going to leave the team and go back to the States. Do you think that's what's going to happen?
Yeah, you got to go home. Like, your son needs you. There's nothing more important. You got to go home. And he sees the weaknesses in his mom, and he wishes, like, dude, his mom was there for a week and didn't even see his son, her son. Like, that's just wild to me. You're going to go on vacation, whether you're retired or not. Like, if you're going to England, go see your son. And then she just is at the park bench and being like, hey, I'm here. Just some random woman. It's so awkward. I'm like, what the hell's going on here? But yeah, I think Ted, he's had his fun in Richmond. He's done all he can. The team doesn't necessarily need him. He's taught them the life lessons. He needs to move on and take care of his son. At the end of the day, it's nothing more important than family.
I liked when Rebecca Higgins like, yeah, you're not taking the private jet. She's like, no, goddamn environment. That's funny. Oh, when they
There's a lot of subtle jokes at like the establishment too.
right, yeah,
Like I feel like that's a very British thing.
yeah. Or when they're talking about, oh, our team needs an anthem. and and
Oh, fat bottom girls. Yes. Oh, he was so good.
was it offensive to?
Freddie Mercury.
It's like, was it offensive to women with fat bottoms? No, it was offensive to women without him.
Yeah. But what was his biggest talent? Flipping straights.
Right. You're right.
That killed
I
me.
thought that's hilarious. Any other moments that you liked? I mean, we mentioned the.
Shouting is Roy's love language,
Oh yeah.
something simple. It's like, oh yeah, okay. Oi. It's like, let me figure you out.
Or
Or just like Jamie's like, I lost my wings.
like the Red
Like
Bull guy.
I'm lost. Yeah, and then Will walks in like, oh my God, what did I
It's
miss?
like you missed a good one, Will.
That was good. Yeah.
Which I like. That was a good joke because a callback joke. There's a lot of callback jokes this season, which I like. I mean,
Yeah.
we had the biggest callback joke towards the beginning of the season with the Ussie. That I missed the Ussie guy. We haven't seen the Ussie kid, but we've seen the Ussie. We've had the constant joke of every time they go to a hotel and they put a TV on, Keely is somehow doing some infomercials on there, which I thought was a nice ongoing joke with that. And
See, that's fine. We don't need to see her like film all these things. We
no,
can show little clips.
right.
That's a fine little extra
Mm-hmm.
additive.
Mm-hmm.
Or even the little Oklahoma thing
Yes.
where, Rebecca and Ted are talking and Ted's like, yeah, I love my mom. So glad she's here. And Rebecca's like, Oklahoma. It's like, oh my God, I'm so stressed.
Which again I like, and even the ongoing joke of Will, right? Every time there's always these heartful moments in the locker room, they always pan and Will's always in the background. And this episode, it's like he missed it, and even Roy's like, "Oh, he missed a good one, Will," and he's like, "Oh." I thought that was a nice on.
That
There's
was
little
good.
ongoing jokes. Though I kind of thought it was weird, and my wife was even the fact that my wife noticed this, and she's casually into sports. She was when they were making fun of Van Damme and the face mask, and like it looks dorky.
Uh,
She's like, it actually looks scary. It doesn't look dorky to me. It actually looks scary. Like I was
yeah.
like, it's true. I wouldn't look at it and think, oh, that looks dorky. I think that was more of a joke for American fans that don't know the sport. Because I think at this point, if you watch football, you've seen that often enough that it doesn't look. You're not like weirded out by it. You understand why it's there.
I mean, I'm in the middle of watching the Celtics come back with 4 straight wins versus the Miami Heat, and Jalen Brown's black mask.
True.
He
True.
wears it for protection. Like he looks like a badass, and LeBron did it too.
True.
With the mask, I don't think it looks dorky at all. I think they just want to poke fun at Van Damme.
Yeah. Yeah.
And all of a sudden, Van Damme changing his name has made him like the most incredible player ever. This man's nuts. So good.
So good. Oh my goodness. Um, I think that's it. This for this season. Once again, we get a bumper catch joke every episode.
Oh, so many. And he was like the first one to give Jamie a high five after the goal.
Right, right. I'm
He's
surprised.
the
Like,
one guy not to let Nate come in. He's like, I'm just not voting.
yeah.
Sorry, I don't want to deal with this.
Anything else this episode? We have one more
I
episode to
just
go.
had 2 little lines. I thought it was fun. The whole Dave Chappelle lines. Like, oh,
Uh,
that was Dave Chappelle
can
when
I
they're
tell
watching
you
Sleepless in Seattle.
that was a brilliant line, by the way? Because in terms of because I like to write myself, and it's lines like that that make a world feel real, right? Because when we're watching movies and old movies, those are things that happen in real life where you're like, is that,
Yeah.
oh shit, and just that.
Oh, that was Dave Chappelle. Yeah.
That was a great line. I love that, and it was just a little subtle little thing that if you missed it, it didn't matter, but if you caught it, you're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
That was good.
And my second one was when Keely was talking to Jamie, and she's like, "Don't worry, don't worry, don't worry." It's like, "Don't worry about everybody talking about your hair, online." It's like, "Don't worry about people shit talking about your hair online." It's like, and he's like, "Oh, what? Oh no, haven't
and,
even noticed."
and
Like,
she's
how
like,
dare they?
she's telling Roy, I think I made it worse.
Definitely did, girl.
Anyway, I think that's it. Um, I did like Roy telling Jamie, I need you to be the prickiest prick. Like, it's just like
And then he
sometimes,
breaks down immediately.
right?
It's like, oh no. And
um,
he's just like, fuck.
what do you nerdies think of this season? The penultimate episode, the final episode is coming
Oh
up.
man.
What do you think it can do? Can it stick its landing? Can it satisfy? Apparently, again, there's no actual confirmation from Apple themselves. This is just the creatives and the actors talking about it. So Apple can say, "Hey, here's money. We want you to do 3 more seasons or whatever." What do you think will happen? Find us on social media at the Nerdy Bunch. Tim, do you know what's for sure though? Regardless of if they win or don't win, with one week to go of the season, whatever, Richmond, a team that wasn't in the Premier League last season, is now in the Champions League. Like guaranteed. Now.
Guaranteed. Locked. So show us that. No, all right. So I don't want 3 more seasons, but give us one. I need
Right?
some Champions League
Do you know,
matches.
I'd love to see them in the Champions League and just get destroyed, like reality check.
Oh yeah.
Just a
Oh
reality
yeah.
check.
And you have to play 2 matches.
Right,
Like
right,
there's no losing. It's like, oh, we lost 5-0.
Yeah, it's like,
Shit, we got to go on the road now.
Anyway, on that note, thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Dave.
My name's English Dave, and this has been the Nerdy Bunch review of Ted Lasso Season 3, Episode 11, with one more episode to go of the season, possibly the series. Let's see how much they can stick this landing. And as always, Tim,
Keep it nerdy.